Hello and welcome to Cyber Diaries, episode 33. We have another amazing guest, George McKenna. First of all, welcome to the Cyber Diaries, George.
Hey, Maris. Pleasure to be here.
Brilliant. First of all, those who have not heard about yourself and, and your company, could you just, showcase and explain a bit what is ETT, what you guys do, maybe just highlight, some of the services that you guys provide and things like that?
Yeah, sure. Straight into it. ETT. So ETT stands for a couple of things, actually. But really, it stands for Emerging Transformational Technology. The reason for that is I've always found success working in the space of emerging technology. Technology moves so quickly and businesses have to adapt, and we're going to cover off AI and all the challenges that come with it. Have to adapt very quickly to what is, I'm going to use the AI term that seems to go around a lot, the ever-evolving landscape, right? But actually, as a business, to be able to provide and stay ahead of that emerging technology for our customers is an interesting challenge that was poised to me many, many, many years ago, when cloud started to become a thing. Like cloud, actually, if you go back to 2013, 2014, when cloud started to come around, and then there was this mass migration of companies just diving into the cloud and not really knowing what they're doing. And actually, a lot of partners that I worked at some, and actually I saw the aftermath of some, was ramifications of having a partner that doesn't necessarily know what it's doing with emerging technologies by putting it into businesses without understanding its output or the risks that come with it. So, ETT is that partner that does understand, right? We take time and really look at the market and look at what our customers need so that we can help them accelerate the adoption of emerging technology. So, our strapline really is we're the AI and automation acceleration partner, but really it's emerging technology acceleration, right? How do we help businesses today? And not how, but we do help businesses today embed emerging technology into their business. So that's what we do.
Okay. Sounds great. I guess just to preface that, when we're talking about, emerging technologies, what are the main themes, I guess, emerging technology, as you say, 2013 was the cloud, what are we talking about, in current sort of landscape? What are those sort of emerging technologies that we're talking about? We are probably talking about, legacy businesses sort of transforming to current day technology sort of solutions. So what are the main, I guess, emerging technologies that you currently are working with?
Oh, great. So obviously AI. Right. So whether we build, borrow, is one of the biggest pillars that we're working towards, which is how do we help businesses bring AI into their infrastructure and their operations. And we talk about, so when I talk about AI, I mean AI is separate from automation. Automation and AI are two different things.
Yep.
But if we bring AI into a business, that's one of the biggest technologies. Then obviously automation. So you have RPA and you have APA, right? So you have robotic process automation, and then you have agentic process automation. They are probably one of the two biggest buzzwords running around at the moment, and actually probably the biggest misunderstanding of the difference between AI and what automation is. Then we're also working really around other technologies that we bring in would really be about data, right? So how do we other areas of data manipulation, well, I say manipulation or augmentation of creating data sets is another area of how do businesses take what data they have and make it usable, is probably one of the other areas. And we'll probably talk about Databricks a little bit later on. But
sounds good. I think, when you were talking about, emerging technology, and I think bringing your sort of estate up to date, I think, efficiency probably where you reap the greatest benefits, because as you say, automation, legacy businesses, and I noticed that a lot, there's a lot of manual processes that take so much time overhead that, companies are struggling, and you can sort of unleash, I guess, productivity and so much time savings and cost savings as well. Now, I'm always fascinated when new businesses emerge, such as ETT, that solve complex problems. And I guess the one thing that I always interested, and I had various conversations, whether it's CISOs or other technology leaders, when you get to the sort of leadership level, there's always and I guess idea and direction where people decide to go, and obviously some people continue that path, being an employee and a leader, while some other people take direction and actually build solutions to serve, clients and to solve, difficult and complex problems. So if you could just highlight a bit, what was your journey to become a founder, and how did that idea come about?
What a fantastic question. So, how far do I go back? So originally, I was a SQL DBA. We're going back to literally Microsoft Visual Studios and SQL database management. If we're going back to like early 2000s, I went on. I took a sabbatical after that. And I went to Canada for a holiday. So I'm going back to 2009. I went to Canada on holiday, and I loved it so much I ended up staying for 4 years. But to be able to stay, obviously, I needed to work. Mm-hmm. And I fell into door-to-door sales, selling door-to-door to mum and pup shops, internet service lines, and internet and basically VoIP-based phone systems. And while doing that, I learned a very, very important lesson, which was products and features don't sell, outcomes do. Now, those outcomes can either be financial or they could be operational, right? Or they could be very customer leaning. I did that for 4 years. 100% commission. I got a check at the end of every week based on all the sales that I did. And I came back to England and I fell into a role, very luckily, as an account manager for an IT firm based in Brighton, who shared that initial philosophy of we need to solve problems.
Yep.
And I know it sounds simple, we need to solve problems. It sounds simple, and it's very simple to say, but it's actually very hard to achieve, especially in a very technologically focused world, right, where technology is the focal point. And the reason I'll say that, because the reason for that is important for a little bit later on.
Yep.
So I spent 6 years at that business. I was employee number 3. We grew from, I think it was about 300K to about 30 million in about 7 years. Phenomenal, fantastic business. And then I was, got, as you usually do after you've been in business so long, you get a little itchy and you move to another one. And interestingly, I moved to this other business who were just sales product focused, right? There was no outcomes. It was just how quick could you sell it? How cheap could you sell it? And I learned that wasn't really where I sat. It wasn't the type of conversations. It wasn't the type of customers I wanted. So I moved to another bigger partner, where I then became basically the head of an entire sales function. And that's where I sort of started to then really enjoy the strategy and the elements of creating good salespeople, but then also salespeople that understood outcomes and focused on problem solving. Because by doing that, we were able to create services and create outcomes for businesses that actually changed the needle for them, actually moved or changed the dial, should we say. And then in return, we actually earned more money. And during that period, when you work for a larger business, there's always these challenges of bureaucracy, right? And budgets and finances and investors and all those type of things. And when you add all those things into the mix, decisions are made that are not always in line with actually doing what's right for a customer.
Yep.
So I always toyed with the idea, and I spoke to many people about, starting my own IT business. And the number one thing they always said was you need a lot of money. Biggest barrier to entry in starting an IT business, especially in the UK channel, is you need a lot of money. Now, I was a foster child, right? I was in and out of care as a child and all sorts. So I don't come from money. Everything in my pocket is I've earned. So that was always a big daunting factor for me of, I don't think I can ever do this. Anyway, roll forward to another 4 or 5 years. And I ended up at my last employed role as I was a director of solution sales, and I was responsible for the area that I loved, which was problem solving. Problem areas, they served the customers that weren't necessarily my type of favorite customer.
Yeah.
So I left. Now I left, and I had a 9-month-old baby, and no, not he. He wasn't 9. He was 10. He was 10 months. Yes, and I was like, right, I've got an entire summer. I've got another baby due in 3 months, but I'm not going to spend the summer not doing anything. I need money, so I'll get into basically doing some consultancy. So I just decided to set up a business to help MSPs train salespeople on how to become outcome focused, how to really drive and understand what outcome means, what that sales process looks like. And that lasted about 8 weeks before customers that I had sold to previously found out that I was set up a business. Which then led to, well, we'll come on to all the other services and everything else later on. But to become a founder, I think the business today was not originally founded on the idea or premise of providing mass services or sales of services. It was a very specific thing, which was me solving a problem as an individual to a larger organization. And I still do some of that stuff now. I still do some fractional work with them today, but I started with nothing. So the business started with 0 in the bank account. The only thing I had to sell was my time and my experience.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people starting a business forget that you don't necessarily need products. You don't need, hundreds of thousands of pounds in the bank. What you need is to understand or spend some time figuring out your skills and capability that you've built up over time, and that be transferred into something of value that someone would pay for. And that's the start of any business, really. That's the start of any business. You don't need hundreds of thousands of pounds. You just need a little bit of dumb belief in yourself that you have some value to be able to add to someone.
Yeah.
And that's how ETT started. Yeah.
I think that's a great lesson. And I just want to pick up on something that you mentioned. And I think, and I always talk about this, I think there is a great problem with, especially I think in cybersecurity, that people are so obsessed with technology. And as you mentioned, I've seen time and time again, vendors are gaslighting and obviously showcasing features of the product and what the product can do, but actually missing the point of solving people's problems, and that's why I always continuously talk about, for example, the one thing which I'm really pushing, it's firefighting. I think the problem is that in cybersecurity, we continuously look for technology to solve, not necessarily to solve, but to do more, to do more patching, to solve more incidents, instead of actually going to the root cause, why these things are happening in the first place and how we can prevent them from happening in the future, instead of hiring more people, putting more technology to do more. I think the goal is to do less. And do you think that some vendors or some organizations that build products start with a goal to solve problems, but that get lost along the way when you're talking about marketing and sales tactics and techniques, where they kind of fall by the wayside and they kind of get lost?
Oh, you see it so many times, because we work in an emerging space. So, I've got a really good network of working with new vendors, right? So vendors they don't have a channel yet. They're not working with distributors. I won't say the name here, but, they're UK based. Probably 25 employees, but they're big in the Middle East. They've actually become quite big in the Middle East. Technology is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And the CTO, who is very technically minded, created a fantastic technical product. The challenge, though, is to be able to sell a technical product, because actually you're solving technical problems for technical people in their day-to-day roles, the product doesn't solve a business challenge. And the biggest problem when you're trying to sell technology today is the purse strings are held by people who don't understand technology, right? The leadership care about the business, its direction, its brand, its reputation, right? And what its bottom line will look like at the end of the year. Not necessarily your nuanced technical challenges, right? It comes part of most of your roles. And that's the challenge with most vendors today, is they solve these small technical challenges, or if they don't do that, they create very general technical features to fit the masses. But they don't necessarily solve intrinsic problems that businesses have specifically. And you see it with the startups. They have one problem, and then they go, and as they grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger, they become less specific and they become more platform focused, right? Yeah. How many shoes can I fill? How many different areas and touch points can I have? Or can I roll in? And then people start getting trapped into these vendors who only actually solve 40% of the problem. But because they're invested, they get stuck with it. And then they have to build and spend time building processes and all this stuff around it to solve the problem that the product they bought originally doesn't actually solve anymore. And that's the cycle that I see with most purchases that happen.
As same as you, I work with a lot of startups to kind of shape, first of all, what a CISO wants to see from a product, and B, kind of helping a bit guide their sort of go-to-market strategy. And some startups, I think, die in the chase for the feature additions instead of actually getting the product to be good to solve just one simple problem, and acquiring customers and get feedback from customers instead of let's just ask 100 people. They're going to suggest 40 different features and trying to build 40 features without getting customer feedback.
The market's in an odd place because what you have is direct to business vendors who just sell direct, who then do pretty much everything end to end. Then you have the resale model, right, which is where you have the resellers or MSPs reselling the product to a customer. Yeah. Or you have the MSP, or you have products which are created for MSPs, which then are sold as a service. The challenge becomes, I'm starting to see now, is businesses wanting all three. Vendors wanting to have all three models, which then for me just dilutes the outcome of their original platform idea, and then also the value that the customer gets, because you'll get a different experience. The customer gets a different experience from all three. Yeah. And each one of those isn't about solving it's not about solving challenges or providing value to a customer. It's about how much can I sell this for a revenue line to be able to affect a share price. And it happens. You start to see it quite a lot as vendors get a little bit bigger. Yep. And I think it's a common trait. I was at InfoSec at the beginning of the year, and talk about marketing and gaslighting. I think I walked around the whole thing, and every single stall or security vendor could have basically copy-cutted each other's messaging. They all said the same thing. And it was like, wow, we're not solving anything anymore. We're just riding on a train of marketing. Without, I don't want to be negative or anything like that, but it's interesting. And that's where I think businesses, the biggest, an opportunity for businesses like us is to help customers understand where the real value lies within their technology. And I come to this point specifically, is a lot of people talk about technology as a cost-saving exercise or an efficiency improvement. Right? Technology is to always help the bottom line. But actually, and I've always taken this view, is that technology is an investment in growth. Yep. Right? It should always be viewed in that way. Right? If I'm buying networking, it's to help grow. And I always take this principle of, as a sales guy at heart, my customer wants to buy 48 port switch. Why does he want to buy a 48 port switch? He wants to buy because the sales team are hiring 48 new staff. So they need 48 new desks. They need 48 new laptops. The investment into the extra switch is to provide extra revenue growth to that business. Yeah, right? It's not just an upgrade path. So, and it's just taking that view. Same with cybersecurity, right? Cyber is seen as, okay, it's something we have to have. But actually, cybersecurity and the data that you can get through through all of your security platforms, and if you've got a SIEM in your business, you effectively have a data lake of untapped revenue. Yeah. Right? Especially if you're logging and taking in data from your website, logging and taking data in from your customer-facing services into your SIEM service. Your SIEM is effectively now a heat map for your customer data. Right? You can actually take your SIEM data and look at what's dwell times on, challenges on your websites and all that type of stuff, and actually turn cybersecurity into a missed revenue opportunity. Right?
Yeah, I think that's kind of I think the new emerging CISO world as well, where it's going. I always talk about security used to be viewed always as a cost center, but the new leaders that are emerging are the great people who can create a story or a narrative, where you can weave into technological solutions your ROI. Because for example, you buy technology solutions, for example, to empower business development to do more sales, to create a shorter sales cycles, because you, for example, have great security and you can answer due diligence questions quicker. You can, for example, provide trust that your platform is going to be secure, therefore you can gain more customers. It's about how you can connect and create those narratives that actually, you can bring revenue. And that's how you can, if you need technology solutions as a CISO, you can create that powerful story. So yeah, I'm definitely agree with that. Now, I just want to kind of segue into a few other topics that, we have along the lines, ETT is running a NOC, which is Network Operations Center, which is not, I guess, normally something that you would hear around, the world. So how did this idea became about, to run a NOC as was one of the services?
Well, actually, it was customer requirements. So as I said before, the business started as me doing consultancy, but I just, as a career as a salesperson and built a lot of trusted relationships. One of those customers who found out that I'd started a business and has said, how can we work with you? And I said, well, tell me what you need, right? Or tell me what your problems are. And one of those was network observability and visibility. They're a multinational. They operate across a number of sites across different countries, but their IT team's localized, and they're pretty lightweight. So, they were like, well, look, we could really look at having a NOC service. So that's where it came from. It came from a customer's requirement. Mm-hmm. But our NOC service is pretty white glove, as most of our services are, in that, we turn down more opportunity for these services than we do actually take them. And that's because we do, effectively, it's an all or nothing service, right? So network monitoring and performance management. We also do network triage and resolution, but we'll also do things. We'll also roll in patch management, backup config, all the standard services that you get with NOC. Yeah. Difference is really is we use dedicated staff in house to be able to achieve that for Follow the Sun. So we have staff here in the UK. We also have staff in the Philippines and South Africa, and that enables us to really have open on-site presence as much as we need. And that service is actually taken through all of our customers who are on it, rely on it to be there and keep their lights on, really. Yep. The reason we chose to do it was, one, because we had a friendly customer who knew that we didn't have the service, and two, was willing to work with us to build it out in a way that would actually provide value back to them properly. Because I've sold NOC services in the past, and it is very much look, how many devices have you got? What service level do you want? And here's the price. Here's your service number. We'll integrate you to your ticket system. but we don't necessarily know much about how your business runs, what you need. And a true NOC service will take 6 months to fine-tune monitoring, to really provide value back, because those when you're monitoring someone's environment, it's the application performance which matters the most, right? It's how your users are experiencing your network, and that's what we spend my first 6 months really doing, understanding your application performance and what that benchmark should really look like, so that we can then triage and heal your network if issues start to arise. Whereas actually most NOC services are basically an up-down. Right? If something's down, we'll let you know. We're going to let you know, so that then you can go and raise your ticket with your support supplier. Or if we're a support supplier, we'll send out an engineer to fix that switch. True performance management comes with real understanding, and that takes time and investment on our part to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And that's the only NOC service I wanted to do. I didn't want to do, look, here's some license, here's an agent, put a load of SMTP traffic into it, and jobs are good.
Yeah.
That's how it was born, just customer requirement.
Yeah, brilliant. It just goes back to show that, building great relationships actually can, benefit business tremendously. We kind of talked a bit about, and you mentioned around various services, but obviously part of some of the services, you work with different partners or different solution providers. Now, I'm always interested to hear, what's kind of the criteria that you look at before onboarding, whether it's a partner or whether it's a solution that, how do you select who you're going to work with?
Oh, that's another good question. So it always stems back to who we're working with already.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number one. Who are we working with already? Do they compete? Do they complement? So that's the first gate, really. Or do they fulfill? There's an actual gap, right? And then the second one really is, what's the integration points? So all the services and platforms that we have are integratable at a certain level, right? So whether they can integrate with our NOC service, they integrate with our SIEM, or there's some API integration or actual native integration between the two. Everything has to be complementary. And the second one is what's the actual product solving, right? There are many, many vendors out there, and actually I think distribution is going to hate me for this, because I've got some great friends in distribution. You're wonderful distributors, I promise.
Yeah.
Who just need partners to just be on their books to show that there's, we're bringing on new partners and we'll do some deals here and there. When you select what vendors to work with, very specific in the type of relationship I can have with them. Can I build a relationship with the executive team within that vendor? Can I build a relationship with the sales team within that vendor? Because the sales team, they're effectively a separate sales arm going off and selling into your customers, right? Or your shared customers. Do they have the same philosophies that we do, right? Do they care about the same things we care about? And then what does their technological roadmap look like? Right? What are they developing within their platform? You solve this today, but what are you looking to solve tomorrow? Because that's also just as important. Because usually when we sell something to a customer, and if it is just an off-the-shelf platform, are they going to need to replace it in 2 years' time because something else is coming out? And that's not a situation that you want to be in. The tool selection and partnership selection, it has to be fit along those lines, right? Does it fit with what we already sell? As a culture between our two sales functions, do they match? Does the culture between our leadership match? And then are we going after the same customers for the right reasons? And as long as they all marry up, then yeah, it's always a goer. There are two different types of vendors that we look for. One being emerging vendors, and we call those door kickers. Right? Emerging vendors, as I said before, always start with a niche, right? They always start with a specific reason, which is fantastic for a business like us because they're trying to solve a specific problem. So to win and work with new businesses, those emerging new vendors are fantastic. because it allows you to have a different conversation than, you know, the 17 other thousand businesses that are also trying to talk to you. Yeah. And then our other aspect is does it complement or support the existing infrastructure that we already have or supply to businesses as well?
Sounds brilliant. We talked a bit and segued a bit around AI. What do you think in as part of ETT, what's the greatest opportunities in terms of the building out services in the near future?
Specifically to AI?
Yeah.
Oh, biggest opportunity. I think everybody says everything's an opportunity with AI today. I think you need to be a little careful, because we're on this big J curve of just hype, right? You know, that curve will fall at some point in the very, very near future. Biggest opportunities today, and this is what the business might actually, this is what this business is how do we accelerate the use of AI in a secure way that empowers a business to achieve what it really wants to achieve. And, you know, we do free workshops with customers to help them identify use cases for deploying, whether it's AI or automation, into their business. And one of the biggest things we see, and majority of the time, is they are being pitched AI or pitched automation every day. Problem with that is that it's all off-the-shelf products. And off-the-shelf products, everybody can sell, but it isn't the biggest opportunity because it becomes a race to the bottom. The biggest opportunity today is getting businesses ready for AI. Yep. It's spending time with leadership and educating them on what AI means to the business tomorrow, not today, because today, what you have is you've got your big employee base, you've got all your applications, and it will just disrupt how they work. AI tomorrow will actually change how they work. And it's about getting your business into a poised position to be able to support in that new way of working. So things like getting your data ready, right? Every business, and if any leaders are watching this, will go, our business has so much data, we don't know what to do with it.
Yep.
But actually, for AI, you have probably a fraction of what you actually need or you think you need to be able to have AI deployed properly. So it's helping businesses getting ready for AI, whether it's through security frameworks, data frameworks, or just general populace or general citizen education in the business, so that when you do start to deploy and you do start to take these off-the-shelf products or you do start to take services, that your business can actually handle those changes that's going to come down the line.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think that kind of perfectly segues into my next question. So working with companies who try and adopt AI, and you mentioned about security. So is that where the journey became to launch a vCISO service specifically designed for securing AI? Because so many organizations, as you say, are sort of steamrolling towards AI without actually understanding risks and security implications, where, you know, we've seen throughout all kinds of headlines where things go, you know, when they go badly, they really go badly. Yeah. So can you just highlight a bit, you know, what was the idea and what's the direction you've taken in terms of, you know, vCISO services for security or securing AI?
Yeah, it's actually because of the pace. I've seen it a number of times, and I've always worked in cybersecurity, and cybersecurity is, it's a fantastic place as a salesperson to work. Challenge we have is most AI deployments happen within a shadow space, right? Employees are using ChatGPT to do some proposals, but that ChatGPT is their own personal login, right? They're using their own data. That's, data leakage in your business. Then you have, development teams bringing AI into Microsoft environments, whether it's through Copilot or they're getting a pro license for ChatGPT and then using API into just their local data sets, right? And we're doing it at such a pace because and it's the same as what cloud was. We go back to 2013 for this whole, it's a shared model, right?
Yep.
It's shared ownership, and AI needs to be treated the same. It is shared ownership. It's a platform that's provided to you with zero accountability for what you put into it, right? And the difference between what cloud was and what AI is, AI can actually go and do harm, whereas cloud actually is really more of a BCR or business continuity problem.
Yeah.
We have to, talking to a lot of businesses, especially around automation, where we start to deploy agents, actual, working bots that can actually, make system changes, invoice customers, or if we're talking about voice agents, where they will actually interact with a customer and actually have a conversation and take payment details, or have FCA accredited conversations with people. These are conversations with humans or impacts in systems that actually have real world ramifications. And I've seen businesses steam forward and not think of any ramifications or put any frameworks in place. And then I started to ask questions. Well, okay, have you thought about any of this stuff? And most of the time is no, they haven't. And that's where the vCISO is not a new concept. It's been around for a very, as right, a long time.
Yep.
And the challenge actually isn't in the enterprise space. Those big businesses that have CISO functions and have dedicated security functions already started thinking about it. The biggest risk actually is those mid-market to small businesses that will just have an IT manager or just have an head of IT, or they have a network guy that dabbles in a bit of everything and keeps the business up and running. But he'll be asked, hey, can we bring AI into this? And that's not that individual's fault. It's just that's their realm of working. They're there to enable people to go and work and do things. I had a call with a customer primarily the other day who have deployed Microsoft Copilot in their business and given a license to someone in HR with zero guardrails. So Copilot has access to all the HR systems, then everything else that's in their business. But they've not used Purview, they've not put any guardrails or anything like that. So now anybody in that business could ask Copilot anything about something that's in HR. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Without, and the IT manager's view was, well, I trust the person in HR not to ask those questions, right? And the natural cynic in me was, well, HR are generally the type of people that like to ask lots of awkward questions.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to test and ask questions, right? And even if they keep that knowledge to themselves. So, the vCISO really comes back to that pillar of education. It's a service to provide education to businesses on the risks of poor deployments.
Nope.
Yes, it's a service that provides value in 3 different tiers to help you get ready, but really, it's an education program.
Yeah,
businesses.
And as you say, that's a perfect kind of segue, because I think there's some great vendors doing some fabulous things in AI security space, but when you're deploying AI, as we kind of discussed earlier, you can't just plug in technology and you think it's going to solve your problems. It's about understanding your risks and building your governance, because you need to have a strategy how you're going to deploy this AI. You just plug in security tool doesn't mean that all your problems are going to go away.
No, not at all. In fact, create more problems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, we could probably talk for hours on end about various things, but, I just wanted kind of to sum it up and kind of end on one thing. We kind of discussed about your journey into becoming a founder and how, ETT came about. But I guess, the one thing which I would love to leave our listeners to is, if someone's currently in a business, they built that experience solving various kinds of problems throughout their career, and they want to, or they thinking about that leap forward to becoming a founder, what kind of, lessons or kind of ideas that you would want to embark to people who are thinking about that kind of journey? What's kind of a few tips that you would share with people?
Understand what your value is. Productize yourself. This is number one. Right? What skills do you have? What experience do you have that you could put into a service? that you could provide to someone. And then go and test it out. Like, go and have some conversations with people before setting up a business or going as a sole trader or whatever, and have some and fast fail your idea. Right? I'm a big believer, actually. It came out of cloud DevOps, but it's fast fail services, right? Fast fail ideas is if you want to become a founder, don't let anyone ever tell you no. Don't do it. But spend a bit of time understanding your skills, capabilities, and experience. What can I productize as a service to a business to overcome a challenge? And if you can answer that problem about yourself, and then go and talk to people and it resonates and they're interested, you've got a business. It's that simple.
And on that perfect note, thank you much for coming to talk to us, George. I think it was a great chat and a great episode. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Aaron. It's an absolute pleasure. Hopefully you'll invite me back again.
Oh, definitely. I think there's definitely more episodes to come.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you. And we